Today on Tried and Tested, we're taking a look at a product that was very nearly perfect. The Pioneer DDJ-SP1. Hi guys, welcome back to Crossfader. My name's DJ Holland and this is the Pioneer DDJ-SP1. This was released back in the September of 2013 for a street price of around £329 here in the UK. It was released for use with Serato DJ, itself being a brand new software at the time. Serato DJ took Serato Itch, which was designed for controllers and digital DJing, and Serato Scratch Live, which was used for DVS use, and merged them together and brought with it a whole host of brand new features. Released alongside Serato DJ was the Pioneer DDJ-SX, a 4-channel flagship controller that took full control over these new features brought by the software. Features such as rolls, slicers, samplers, and inbuilt effects within the software. If you've not already watched our DDJ-SX look back review and our tried and tested guide, please click the link in the top right hand corner and go ahead and watch that, where I explain a bit more why Serato DJ was so important. Serato DJ was quite new at the time of the SP1's release, and the Pioneer DDJ-SX had taken full control over the potential within the software. Serato Scratch Live was coming to an end, which meant DVS users would soon be moving over to Serato DJ. However, the new possibilities of the software, things like the performance features, those inbuilt effects, etc., they couldn't be used by the DVS users. There was no way of controlling those effects without going and using your keyboard or your mouse. So Pioneer very cleverly took the SX and everything that made it so popular and so good and just shrunk it down, getting rid of things like the mixer, of course, and the transport controls, you know, your cue and your play and whatnot. Get rid of all that. Just take the performance features and the build quality, the fantastic build quality with the metal faceplate and the really sturdy plastic construction underneath, shrink it down and make it so that DVS users can just use one small controller that takes care of all the performance features. And there is the SP1. Now, this little device doesn't unlock Serato DJ. You can't just plug this in to Serato DJ and get DJing. Of course, there is no outputs, there's no cue, play button, there's no mixer. It's not a controller in that sense. It is, in fact, actually an official Serato accessory, or OSA. So this won't unlock Serato, but what it does do is give the DVS users, or any user that is using one, that ability to access the full potential of Serato DJ. So along the top, there was 2 banks of effects controls, the free wet-dry controls, and then a BPM dial on the right-hand side with individual on-off buttons for all these features. Below we had our sync controls and sensor controls, slip button, and full functionality to change which mode the DVS system is in. In the middle of the controller, we had our browse and view button, so we could actually open up different areas of Serato DJ and navigate through our crates without having to get away from our DJ and going to our laptops. We could load our tracks there. We could even change the volume of the sampler with the central fader. And then, of course, we had 8 pads, one for the left deck and one for the right deck, with fully independent pad modes, something that even the Pioneer DJ-S9, which came many years later, didn't have, which was really powerful stuff back in its day. So we had all this condensed into a fantastically well-built chassis, really sturdy plastic. It weighs a lot. It feels like a tank. Full metal faceplate on there, and then metal pots as well. So this thing was built for life on the road, and it really did bring absolutely everything that was brilliant about digital DJing and the performance features that Serato DJ was bringing. It brought it all, condensed it down into a small enough package that DVS users could take on the road with them. It was superbly designed. It really, really was. Now, the timing of the SP1's release was a little bit funny. You see, at the time, Serato DJ was a new way forward, and they were promoting DJs to leave the older platforms, Itch and Scratch Live, and move forward to Serato DJ. However, at the time, this was the perfect product to lure all those DJs from Scratch Live and move them over to Serato DJ because it really was that good and that powerful. However, at the time of its release, Serato DJ couldn't actually be used with a Rain SL box, which was bizarre, really. I mean, that very quickly got addressed, and it doesn't really matter in the long run of things, but it was a weird time. However, this product was good enough that people using Scratch Live, which was a tested, reliable, trusted software, would move to Serato DJ because of the performance features that this device brought with it. A lot of DJs in the battle scene especially used the SP1 extensively. In fact, since the SP1 and all the products that have come after it, there are many DJs that will still take an SP1 and plug it into Serato DJ Pro in the modern day because it's got independent pad modes. As I mentioned, the DJM-S9 doesn't actually have that, so you can get different pads up with the SP1 to maybe what you're using on your mixer and use different pad modes to help your routine and get more creative. It's a really cool product. However, like I said, it's not perfect. The SP1 takes the pads from the SX, which at the time, don't get me wrong, they're good pads. They're velocity sensitive and you can tap them almost anywhere and they're very responsive, but they're only blue. There's no RGB. Also, this thing was very expensive. £329 is a lot of money for a device that doesn't even unlock the software you're using it with. You still needed to have a mixer or a sound card to unlock Serato to then pay all this money and go and plug this in as well. You know, you can buy beginner controllers which have all these performance pads and a mixer and obviously the decks cheaper than you could have bought one of these. Add to the fact, you also need a stand for this device. You know, you can't just pop it down. You're going to need to get a stand to raise it above most mixers. So it was very expensive. Because of that, it didn't sell particularly well in its early years, and that's probably why we never actually saw an update to the SP1. It just wouldn't have been worth doing for Pioneer, and they weren't selling enough. That said, Pioneer did return with the DDJ-SP1 and XP2. Now, the XP1 features way more pads, RGB pads, and a new way of controlling effects with a touch-sensitive strip down the side, but it wasn't compatible for Serato. The XP2 has since come along recently and is compatible with Serato. However, those controls and the effects, and especially the build quality of the XP models of players, they're not up to the standard of the original SP1. The XP2's touch-sensitive effects controls don't really suit Serato that well. Serato's effects controls are better with the banks of free controls with the BPM knob at the side, as seen here. So the XP2 isn't quite as good or as suited Serato as the original SP1, but a lot's changed since this device was released. DJs with Serato can now use HID mode to have access to hot cues and loops. So a lot of the functionality that many people would have wanted from this when using timecode with CDJs can now just be accessed from the CDJ itself. Also, the mixers themselves have gained a lot of the functionality of the original SP1, and it's just been built into the mixers. You see, when this was released, it was released alongside the 900 SRT DJM mixer. Now, this Pioneer DJM 900 SRT was a fantastic 4-channel flagship mixer that worked with Serato DJ. It unlocked the software. You could use it as a 4-channel USB sound card for DVS use, but it didn't have any buttons or any controls for the performance features. So Pioneer at the time would regularly advertise the two devices together. So you got the most out of Serato by having to have the mixer and then the SP1. But like I say, a lot has changed, and now we've got things like the Pioneer DJM-S9, which is a mixer with the pads and all the functionality of the SP1 built into it. Admittedly, the S9 doesn't have independent pad modes like the SP1 does, which is a big shame. But you know, it's been baked in. And other mixers have come along that do have all that built in, such as the Rain 70 and the Rain 72. In fact, if you look at the price of a Numark Scratch, it is only £80 more than the SP1 when it was first released, and that is a sound card, a mixer, and performance pads all built in. This device was just let down by its price. But 7 years of development has passed, so we can forgive the SP1 for being a little bit dated. That said, the SP1 is still on sale today for £269 here in the UK. It may not be a product that every DJ will lure after or, want to save up and go out and buy, but in special use cases, this little device is perfect. And I know so many DJs that have owned an SP1 for many years and still swear by it and still take it to a gig today. And thanks to that fantastic build quality, they're all working as they should do. This really was a tank of a unit and it just keeps going. Very robust. I've never heard of an issue with an SP1. That said, would I buy one in 2020? Well, if you're a Serato user, maybe you use timecode, maybe you're using a controller and need access to different pad modes, then yes, but I would heavily recommend trying to get one for a lower price. Look on that second-hand market. These things are built really, really well, so they will, most of the time, I've never heard of one breaking, but look for one that's on the second-hand market that's still working and try and get one for a decent price. Even at £269, I think that's too expensive for the functionality this brings. Bearing in mind, you can buy a controller for that sort of money these days. So there it is. I'll look back at the DDJ-SP1 by Pioneer, a product that with RGB pads and a slightly lower price tag could have been perfect. Have you had an SP1? Do you still own it? Do you still use it? Are you actually looking at buying this unit in 2020? Let us know in the comments below. We love reading your stories and your thoughts about these products. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Please do subscribe if you've not already done so and hit that bell icon so you're notified when we upload more content just like this. I hope you're well wherever you're watching from. Take care. Thanks for watching.